Looking for all the latest tips, tricks, updates of what's going on in the recruiting industry, check out the Digital Recruiter Sunday night newsletter. I am not here to blow up your inbox. I don't have enough time to create an email every single day. I once a week send you impactful, a big thing that I've learned this week or realized from working with hundreds of recruiters, owning an agency myself. I'm in the trenches every day like you are, and I'm sharing everything that I'm seeing every Sunday, from content, from automation, from how to get better clients, how to find candidates quicker, how to grow your team, how to hire people, everything in between. The link is in the comments. Sign up today, or you can go to my LinkedIn profile, Clark Wilcox. It's the first link on my featured section. You can sign up there. It's all free. So you get all the tips, everything that you need, free in your inbox every Sunday night. Sign up today. Well, today I'm honored to have a very special guest from halfway around the world, at least from where I'm sitting, just like she thinks I'm halfway around the world, from where she's sitting in Australia. Belinda Kerr, founder of the Recruitment Garage, agency owner. She sold her agency, I think had a couple exits. She's got the Tech Savvy Recruiter podcast with her co-host Andrew Roger. And we just had some great conversations, so we're excited to press record, and I'm excited to learn more about her journey, how she got here, and I know she's got a lot of value to give our listeners today on the Digital Recruiter podcast. So, Belinda, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it. I know that we had a bit of a pre-chat, and I'm excited about what we're going to share today.
Yeah, we figured out time zones and everything. Nothing could stop us. So,
No.
and it's, every time we talk, I kind of learn there's so much like overlap as, owners and coaches. It's cool to kind of just share stories and perspectives, and we're kind of like, yeah, this owner said that. I'm like, yeah, that's like my client that said this. And I think what's going to be great about this conversation, or what I'm excited about, is just that feeling of validation, I think, that recruiters and producers need, because it could be an island and it could be hard, and it's February in the middle of winter here in Ohio, and it's just like, how do I just keep going every single day? Because I thought all these people were going to sign up and have recs right away. So it's just like, we're going to just kind of share some of the war stories about being in the trenches. And but with that, I think the listeners want to know, like, how'd you get into recruiting? How'd you end up here, right? What's kind of the origin story?
I think, like everybody else, or most people that I know, I just fell into it, Clark. I originally started actually I was a nurse years ago, but that's way back. And then I ended up selling advertising in the UK, and I came back to Australia, and I launched a recruitment section when I was in the UK selling the advertising. And I came back and I worked for a newspaper here called Sydney Morning Herald, and I worked on the recruitment section. So I was working on it in the days where the newspapers were just flooded with recruitment ads. And I was like, recruitment, it's like a kind of okay job. So I left. I actually did a season at the Snow and just went off and kind of did nothing for a while. Then I came back, and I thought, I think recruitment would be quite good, because I got to know a lot of recruitment owners just by virtue of working at Sydney Morning Herald. So I started in recruitment, and then I think I did about 2.5 years in an agency, and then thought, like everybody does, I think I could do this on my own. So it was the pretty typical story from working in an agency to then setting out on my own agency. And then I ran that. I grew that for, that's what's called the best part of 15 years or so. Sold that, and then I sold it before that, and then started another one, which was more around like a franchise type model with a partner. And then I stepped out pretty early on in that business because I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I wanted to actually coach and use what I'd learned to then do what I'm doing now. So that was kind of the 30-second story.
First person I've ever heard that learned of recruiting through the newspaper ads. I know people that would post ads, right, or respond for their candidates, but interesting that you learned about recruitment through that. Really interesting. And so you built your firm, and when you were recruiting, did you start, like, what did you start recruiting on? Like, what was that? Was it like anything and everything? Was it
so
like
I started,
yeah.
So because I'd come out of the media sales world, it made sense for me, and I had a lot of relationships in Sydney in that world. So I started recruiting in that space. So mostly media sales, but other things thrown in there as well. And then when I started my own agency, that's where we started, and that over time that expanded out into the media agency side, and then the creative advertising side. sort of, we kind of just kept on things that were like industries or areas, markets that were related, I guess. We just moved into those. And then ad tech was coming in towards the latter period of that time as well. So the roles become a little bit more technical. So down the sort of SEO, different sorts of ad platforms, tech ad platforms. And that's about the time that I left.
And it kind of did your own thing. Now I have a lot of questions just about even recruiting in Australia, because shocking, I think 80% of our listeners are in the US. So like I'm gonna learn, but they're probably gonna learn a lot. Like, are there differences that you've seen in the Australian recruiting market to the US? You might not be super exposed to the US part. I'm not quite sure, but
I'm
like,
pretty exposed.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure more recently in like the last decade or so, like right, LinkedIn and the internet like made us like more accessible, everything more accessible internationally. But yeah, have you noticed like differences or
Yeah.
like yeah?
So for context, Clark, so about half of my clients are in the US. So
Okay,
in North America, about half are in North America and half are in APAC. We used to do the UK, but I wanted my nights back. So here, if you're working the
yeah,
UK market, you got to be up until late at night. And I was
yeah, no
kind of,
thanks. Yeah,
no thanks. So now it's North America and APAC. So it's interesting how similar they are. Like when I speak to people about potentially joining us to work with us, the problems are always the same. They're always some version of, we need more clients, we need more candidates, I'm too busy, we want to implement systems and processes, and we just feel like we don't know what we don't know. They're very, very similar conversations. And so that's all very similar. It doesn't matter what market. You could be in biotech, you could be in legal, you could be doing landscaping recruitment. The business issues are very similar. The big thing that I think is great in the States is that you have the 1099s, whereas in Australia and in APAC, we don't tend to take on contract recruiters. It's either you work for us or you don't. And I think we're missing a huge thing there. And in Australia, you find that people will think, oh no, I just don't think we could get that buy-in, that credibility with using contract recruiters. And I know there's a little bit of it happening, but not much. So I think we really miss a trick there. But to be honest, otherwise, people are people, businesses are businesses. Businesses are made of people. We all kind of wired the same way.
yeah,
And I know we'll have like different little market fluctuations, but last year was a tough year for everybody. It was tough in the US. It was tough in Australia. So I think mostly we're more similar than we think.
yeah. Interesting. It's just
Hmm.
time zones then, right? Maybe an accent
Now
here or
that
two.
makes it tricky. That
Yeah,
does make
yeah.
it tricky.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we get into the media ad tech. Like, how have you seen that kind of pivot, right? From where you had your own firm for a long time and sold it. Like, how did you kind of navigate some of the changes that happened, right, with tech and LinkedIn kind of evolved. Like, what have you kind of seen kind of be different versus like what have you seen kind of stay the same? It's kind of always hold true in recruiting.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think you do hear this a lot. People will say people are still people. We need to have real conversations. We need to connect. We
Yeah,
need to be building our network and coming across with people and offering
yeah,
value. I think one of the things that people are really mindful these days is, am I talking to a bot or am I talking to a person? Is this AI
amen.
generated or is it real? And I don't know, it almost feels a bit cliche, but I think you just have to let people know that you're real, that you're interested, that you're genuine, and have that real commitment to really understanding what your client wants and helping them get there, and not trying to be like, tech is amazing, automation is amazing, but it's got to be used in the right scenario. In fact, I interviewed a friend of mine the other day on the Tech Savvy podcast, and he had a really good quote about tech. It was I think it was tech to automate, people to amplify.
Yeah.
No, hang on, I've got that wrong. That wasn't the right saying. We might have to edit that out.
Oh, it's all
but
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the way I look at it for the digital recruiter is just we use enough automation to get the conversation going, right? To get the human conversation going, and
yeah.
people are surprised when I tell them I'm much more recruiter than digital when it comes to digital recruiter because it's the human piece that makes the difference and that's going to stand out. And AI will replace some people's jobs, but if jobs getting replaced by AI, I mean, they can't replace the conversations and that feeling of connection, authenticity that humans want, and getting the nuance of figuring that out. I think AI can support a lot of the data and the data capture and a lot of the research, right, to
Yeah.
elevate great recruiters. I think that's what's going to happen. But it's like use the automation to start conversations, but you got to get in there, and it's not going to do all the work for you. At least not in recruitment. Like it really won't. But there is a lot of things it can support, and we can drive automation at scale to have conversations at scale that are human versus like one call out, one call back, maybe, one message out and all that. Like, but you just have to be intentional with it. But then it can kind of open the floodgates of volume and good
Mm.
volume. And then you kind of figure out from there, like, who's going to be a good match, right? And a lot of that is about timing and everything else. But I think when done right, that tech can kind of almost help you capitalize on timing, if you
Yeah,
will, which I think is
100%.
like one of the hardest things to do. Is they're gonna like, do they need me now or not? Like, right? Like, kind of always trying to figure that out. Yeah,
Well, it's interesting too. We interviewed a friend of mine, Ross Clement, recently again, and he was talking about he originally wrote a blog called I think it was Volume Recruitment is Toast, and I was like, that's really interesting. And he was referring to a story where McDonald's were using Olivia rather, an AI bot to take the process through from application to hire. Now, obviously, that's junior level staff and it's high level, but it was basically all driven
yeah,
by automation. So the volume end of it, I think there's a lot more, AI and tech. There's a lot, especially at this particular point in time. That's kind of managed by that already. But then the more you get towards, executive recruitment and non-volume recruitment, then it's very much a matter of exactly what you said. Then using it for that initial connection, keep to use it to keep touching base with people, keep on their radar. But then ultimately, we're really using that to drive human connection and human conversation, because you want to, what we're all ultimately trying to get that to do is to have a conversation with you so that you can then talk to them about what jobs you want to put them forward to. So I think this year is going to be like last year. I think people were still playing around and working things out, and I think this year is going to really accelerate, and we're going to get more serious about the real applications that are going to really stick and change the way recruitment's done. But let's
yeah.
see.
I mean, it's here, right? It's here to stay, and it's kind of, you have the people that are all in and gung ho about it, people that are more nervous, and it's easy to also get carried away and buy tools on what, like an app sumo or whatever, buy 10 different things for $60 and I'm going to try this and try that. I think really being
Oh,
honest with yourself, right, about what your goals are for the year and
yeah,
reverse engineering that, right?
you touched on something really important there, Clark. And it's so easy to go to this whole FOMO thing and what am I missing out on and what should I be finding out about?
Yeah,
And, what's this tech do and what's that tech do? But you can't start there. You've got to start exactly what you said. You've got to start back at what your goals are and then figure out what you need in your business, because there'll always be no shortage of tech. And of course, what's available today will be different next week, different next week. You cannot spend your whole week looking at stuff. And what I recommend people do is just allocate a certain amount of time, a week, a month, or whatever, to just do some exploring and find out what's there. But don't let it eat into your day and
yeah,
try this and try that, because you and I both know that focus is the absolute game changer in business. If you're not
it is.
focused, then you're going down. And what this does, it's like any social media, sitting there scrolling, getting diverted, getting fractured, thinking like a goldfish because we're moving around so quickly now from one thing to the
Yeah,
next.
yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
you
me.
just
Yeah,
that's all of us. And we have to really, running a really good business requires discipline and it requires focus. And
yeah,
there is no magic pill. There is no quick piece of one tech that's going to save your business. And I think people put too much focus on, I'll grab this thing, I'll grab that thing. It'll be the answer to me going
yeah.
from 300 a year to 3 million. It's not the case.
Well, I, I'm with you, right? Just simplifying it. I've had a couple conversations, and um, I mean, and to be frank, like, I realized that about my own thing, because there are so many different types of recruiters, and people have different situations and all that. And I realized, like, I was getting caught up in that. And that was kind of like my goal this year. I've told people like, I actually, brought on someone that's helped me with like my sales coaching and like listening to my calls and all that. It's not more tech that I need. It's not anything else. I just wanted someone to listen back to how I'm having conversations. And that has had
Yeah.
more of an impact for me the last 4 weeks than anything else. So that could not, it's not new AI. It's not ChatGPT operator, which I did try out and I'm testing out. It's interesting. But the most significant investment I've made is hiring a coach to just listen to my calls and give me feedback, because I'm always trying to think like, am I connecting with people the way I think I am or I want to? Because my job is to guide them in the right direction, whether that's working with me or not. And I want to
Yeah.
get better at that in the
Yeah.
conversation. So like I'm investing in
100%.
that myself out of anything I could do. Like that's like the main thing, and it's always been a game changer. I did a couple years ago. I wish I kept it going the whole time. And so for me, with all this noise, it's actually reflecting back, having someone focus on the most important thing, which is, am I getting the right people into my community or not? Right? And am I
So
making
true.
it clear for them to know if they should be a part of it or not? That's all I care. If I do that, the rest will come.
Yeah.
Like
It's
the absolute rest
interesting.
will come.
Absolutely, it will, and it's interesting. You get people that sort of like the tech conversation. What tech should I be looking at? What should I be grabbing onto? And I'll get this question all the time. What should I be adding on? What should I be doing extra? And I'll say to people, let's talk about what you've already got, and I'll run through this exercise. So how many people do you actually have on your database? And let's just say 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say it's 5,000 candidates. Okay, out of those 5,000 candidates, how, like, when's the last time you connected? Well, how often do you connect with those people? Oh, here and there, when we've got a job, when we need something. Okay, all right. And how often do your candidates move around, change jobs? Once every couple of years. Okay. So now I haven't got the maths on 5,000 exactly, but usually it's around about, so there'd be like roughly 200 people on your database changing jobs every month. How many of those still know about you, or you are in communication with? Like, there's so much money in there in your database that
So
you're just
much.
missing out on. And then the other thing that you're doing is you're going out and you're advertising on job boards and LinkedIn and all these places. How many of those people that are responding are already sitting on your database? So if we start here and we look
Yeah.
at how can we engage with these people more, how can we start doing, like a newsletter or a podcast or something interesting, like whatever is of value to your market, and communicating with them more. And if it's clients, sending out things like NPCs and different value points to them and what they're interested in the market, not just trying to sell to them every time you contact them. Sending them something, working up to the point where you're sending it to them every week, you will get tons of money out of there before you even think about getting a new piece of tech. And you've spent, what I find is people who've been in business a few years or recruiting a few years, is they build up all these wonderful assets, their networks, their LinkedIn connections. They go, oh, I've got so many connections on my LinkedIn. Okay, well, what are you doing with those connections? How often are you speaking with them? How are you taking them from connections to being candidates or clients? And then they'll kind of go, they have this moment, they go, oh yeah. you know and how many of
It's
those people you've got on LinkedIn are from past life that you should be deleting, so that the content that you put on LinkedIn is actually working really well for you? Oh yeah. And so, this isn't to criticize, it's just to make people go, oh, it's now time to leverage what I've been working really hard on all these years. Because recruiters and recruitment agency owners, they work really hard, but sometimes I think they make life harder for themselves by not just stopping, taking a breath and going, hang on, I've built this over here, how can I leverage this asset better than I'm doing right now? And maybe there's some tech to help you do that. There quite often is. But that's the question, as opposed to, well, let me just go over here and add all this sexy new tech and, get it to do whatever it does.
leverage is
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
word. And
It is the
leverage,
word. It is the
yeah,
word.
because owners want their time back, right? They want to get their time back and be more profitable. But the way you do that is by utilizing leverage and understanding what that is for your business. I think you couldn't have said it any better. That's the key word, that it's not necessarily what they're looking for, but that's the solution. And that's
Yeah.
why we preach the newsletter and what you're talking about and NPCs, and I'm all about LinkedIn content, because it's, again, the fish where the fish are, and they're on there, right? So if you have have all their email in your database, a newsletter is one, and then the LinkedIn content, that feed is activating your flywheel at all times, right? The amount of messages we get from the posting content and just having the automation going, and it's like, hey, I wasn't looking in August, but it's January 8th. Now I'm looking. And we're like,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And what inspired that is because we're just present and we're posting and we have campaigns going and we're posting and we're letting human behavior do its thing. We're not trying
Yes.
to
Yeah.
control everything. People are going to be looking. I don't know when. Right? You can't do the magic 8 ball, right, with 1,000 people, 5,000 people. But what if you are the bat signal for 5,000 people? And like
That's
that's
right.
almost kind of like the way to look at it versus like individually going door to door and knocking. Just put the bat signal, right? Digital recruiter, recruitment garage, like, hey, this is a piece of content. And that's like kind of what it is, right? 5,000 people see one thing versus you trying to reach 5,000 people individually.
Most of the
That's, yeah,
people. Oh, sorry, Clark.
that's it. No.
I was just going to say most of the people that join me, and I'll say, the conversation, how did you hear about me or find me? Oh, I've been following you for ages, Belinda. And it'll be
Yes.
crickets. Like, I don't actually get a lot of engagement on my LinkedIn content, but a lot of people look at it. It's really interesting. So they'll say, oh, you've been following you on LinkedIn for ages. And I'm like, I haven't seen your name anywhere. Like, where did
Yeah.
you come from? And
LinkedIn lurkers.
I
Yeah.
know, or they'll have been receiving our emails every week for a while,
Yeah.
and we have a system in there where we try and send value out every week, and very rarely do I get somebody come and talk to me just completely out of the blue. It just doesn't happen. And I was talking to a marketing guy the other day, and he was saying that the like, so doing podcasts and then like the really short reels, like the 30 to 60-minute reels, are absolutely going nuts at the moment. So if you're doing podcasts, or if you're doing, just a quick tip here on the fly, if you're doing podcasts or videos, any sort of video content, the little vertical with the captions on them,
Yeah.
short, sweet, people are absolutely loving them, and people get to see who you are. They get a snippet of your personality, and I think they sort of come across more just really natural. And I guess in this world where everyone's wondering if something's AI, clearly at the moment that's not, although that will come as well. I
Yeah.
was watching something last night actually on these. It was an ad that came up about a company that they do some sort of like influencer marketing with fake models. And I saw this before I knew it was AI. It was this gorgeous, I just thought it was a gorgeous young girl, but it was a completely AI generated video. I don't think we're quite there with our podcasts and stuff yet, but they're doing really, really well. And content is, you have to be in the content game if you want to win at recruitment. I know that sounds a bit like high level marketing fluffy fluff, but it's
It's
true.
true,
I've
but
I've
then we have
seen
to
it.
talk about good content, right? But I want to just tell you. So I opened up Instagram earlier today, and it's how it suggests people to follow. This version of it had like AI things that I could follow, like AI avatars that look like people, but it was just like, I was like, what is going on here? Like, what
Yeah.
is this?
So
It
your
was
AI
so
talks to
weird.
my AI, talks to my AI.
Yeah, it was weird. I was just like, "What?" I was like, "No, thank you. Like, delete this feature, please."
Yeah.
Um, so that was wild. But I was trying to bring it up because like I was gonna screenshot and send it to you because it was like, yeah, follow this like AI person or avatars, and it's like, I don't know. I'm not there
People
yet.
want to get to
Yeah,
know who you
people.
are. They want to
Yeah,
see, and I think I saw somebody say the other day, and it didn't come from me, that we're all in business, and mostly we have our own spin on things, but a lot of us are doing similar things. But the only thing that we've got to differentiate us is our own personal, like us, who I am, who
our
you are,
story.
our own
Yeah,
personality. And if people can't see that, then you're kind of in with the crowd. So you need
yeah.
to show people, absolutely need to show people who you
Well,
are and who
it's,
you're
it,
not.
Well, exactly, right? Like you want your content to actually repel people you don't want to work with, which I think I do a great job of. It's one of the things I'm proud of. But I had someone that bought like our course, right? Not in the coaching, our course, and I did a quick call with them, and I was like, he's like, I'm loving the automation. I'm getting leads and candidates. It's great. It's like I got to get with the content more. I'm like, what's the issue with it? He's like, I just see my feed and like everything sounds the same. The templates. I'm like, any of the templates and all that in there, like you have to input your own story. You have to inject your life into anything that you study or template. Like, it has to be you because the things that go wrong in recruitment happen to all of us, right? Interview process is an issue, or getting ghosted, or counter offers, or low offers, right? All the problems are the same, or we've encountered them. but the story behind it or the names to that are different. Now, you're not putting people on blast, but those happen to you, right? Like, I had a candidate have this offer and they offered 100, but it was clear they wanted 120 and all that. And like, here's the issues. Like, that is unique to your experience and your
Mm.
candidate. And dive into that level. Number one, that specific of content is what does well. That's what converts into leads.
Mm.
Number one, I find I'm curious your take on all this, but like that is like what I found, and like that's specific because it's to you, it's your story, and I've been calling out people for copy and pasting templates or posts that they've taken from me or other other recruiters in my program, but they've stripped the heart of the story anyway. So it's not nearly as good. It might get 20,000 likes, but because it's a blanket template, but they're never going to get clients from it
No.
because there's
I
no soul behind it. Yeah, I'm curious your take on
Yeah,
that.
that's so
Yeah,
true. I ask myself two questions. Is this valuable, and does this make somebody feel something? Like if I
yeah,
write this, and the other thing I do is when I'm writing content or video and content, I think of the people in my program who are, I just would, they're just they're superstars,
yeah.
but they're very much. I only invite people into my program if they're kind of my tribe. Like if I spot that somebody's not collaborative or they're not a team, they don't want to be part of a group, a community, that they're not the right. There's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them per se, but they're just not right for the way we
Right.
do things. And so I just every time I'm writing content, I'll think of one of the people or a couple of people in the program, and I write to them. And then when you or a video to them. And when you do it that way, it comes across very differently than if you just try and, dear whoever. So, and then I look at it and I go, would that make me feel something? Is it easy to digest, or have I made it really complicated? Because I make things complicated. So I try and strip it back and go, is there just one simple message in here that people can take? And that's all you need is one simple message. You don't have to tell everybody everything, because that's a mistake I think often as a coach. You make you feel like you got to tell everybody everything, but you just need to tell them what's going to help them at that point. What's the one thing that can make a little difference? What's going to get them to the next level? So
Yeah.
that's the way I think about. And I find that, like, I posted about my twins were born very young. They were born at 24 weeks, and so they were tiny, tiny,
Oh,
tiny. And so I put a post that when I put a post up the other day, and I found a photo, one of them when she was only maybe a couple of weeks old, this like crinkled up little thing, versus
yeah.
her playing with the dog at the moment. It had a big pink feather bar in its mouth or something. And it was a post, but it was about how kids teach us so much, but then watching her, just it was about, the message was, just take one day at a time in your business, one step at a time, don't rush it. And sort of the analogy was watching her grow up.
Yeah.
And that got quite a lot of engagement. But then you put something up serious about business, and it's like it gets nothing.
Four
But it's
likes, but I guess
yeah,
what gets you'll get some leads from it though, right? I'm like,
but
"Hey, can you
people
tell me more about
watch
that?"
it.
Yeah,
But
people are paying
but this is
attention.
interesting. They see
Yeah.
it, but they just might not necessarily engage with it, which I think's interesting. But I do think you need both. I don't think you can do one or the other. Or for
Right.
me
No.
anyway. That's
Yeah.
what I
You
find.
well, you want to humanize, right? And I'm seeing it now, and
Exactly.
I love it. I mean, that picture is incredible. Both the pictures are incredible, but
Oh, you saw it, did
the
you?
little one, yeah, it's we got a little one on the way in a couple weeks from the time of this recording, and it's just like it hits you different when you have one and then you
When
have
you've got
another
your
one on
own
the way.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like they're so that's it's a whole thing, but it's a great post. I think it's nice to have those human stories to share. And but to your point, what you said about the one thing is so true about content. To just have one point, I see
Mm,
people with these AI generated posts that they're making 10 different posts, 10 different points, excuse me, in one post, and everyone's
yeah.
getting confused. No one's reading that. It's one of the biggest things I had to learn when I was starting copywriting and writing was stick to the one thing because I wanted to say it all. And the way I started coaching clients is think about your content not in one post, right? Because people start posting like, oh, I got to get everything in one post. No, think about a year. Can you get 100 messages out there? Can you make 100 points in a year and give yourself the year to do it?
Yeah.
Then you're going to have a compelling story that people can follow along on and
Yeah.
different themes and principles. It sounds like you probably kind of coach and teach it and live it in a similar way. But I think that helps people kind of break it down. Okay, I'm not going to get all my leads on the first post. I might get one, or two, but what can I do over the course of the year? Can I tell the story over the course of the year? And going back to your word leverage, that's how you really leverage, because then you're sharing all the wins, the ups, the downs, the insights, the education over the course of a year. You're like a must follow for your target market, because they'll always know they're going to get something every day, like that one thing that they can take away.
I
And
think
that's
a trick
super
that people
valuable.
miss
Yeah.
a trick that people miss on LinkedIn is that we get so caught up in our own, oh, how many posts did I get? How many likes and comments? And you're looking, but the magic in getting LinkedIn and the algorithm working hard for you is to also make sure that you're following people and commenting on other people's posts, because LinkedIn love you for that. And what I always recommend people do as well is go find out, well, you probably know the thought leaders in your market, save their posts on your like on your bookmark, and then go in every day and see what they're doing, because the thought leaders, the people who are the people in your market following, jump on your thought leaders post, and every day where relevant, comment, not just like and oh yeah, great post, but actually put something that's of value that the rest of your market will see. And that's really valuable to do as well. Every industry has thought leaders, and some of them will be quite prolific on LinkedIn, so that can be useful. We have to start, I think, when we think about content, we have to start thinking about how we can look at other people's content, like, share, comment. Not so much, don't think sharing is much value, to be honest, but commenting is the best value than liking it, to just build that sort of groundswell of just engagement in you, whatever way that looks like on LinkedIn. But I know people get challenged, and founders and recruiters get challenged because they're like, oh my God, we're busy filling jobs and here's another thing. But if you create a process around it and just, put like half an hour a day or whatever it is to that, and just block that into your calendar, instead of having it sort of here, there and everywhere all over your day, it becomes manageable. And I think increasingly so, especially founders. I mean, I only work with founders, so I can't really speak for recruiters, but I'm guessing it's probably pretty similar, that there's so much coming at them, so much they have to do. We started a business, we were a great recruiter, we were busy then. So it's interesting, actually. So a bit of a segue. So I'm a recruiter, I'm at my desk, I'm really busy, but I'm really good. So I'm going to go and start my own agency. So now you're in your own agency. You're still doing the job that you did before, but you haven't got any of the resources that you had before. You haven't got the big ops and marketing department behind you. Plus now you've got these other things, because you're trying to grow a business and work as a business owner. So you've got different things to think about: growing your website, putting your terms of business in place. You've got your marketing to think about, salaries to pay, whatever it might be. And you're so busy, and then you think, God, now I've got to do content, now I've got to do now I've got to do all these other things. And you cannot do it the same way that things have to change over time. What got you from there to here won't get you from here to there. And then we starting to have to think about delegation. Like, what does that look like? Systems, processes, chunking my time, splitting my day between being a recruitment founder, a CEO, and a recruiter. You can't recruit 1 minute and then be trying to create a strategy to grow your business the next. You've got to separate them. And I think that's where people get unstuck. They just start to get on this wheel and everything gets increasingly busy. And if you don't stop and tease that out and strategize around it, get rid of the stuff that's not important, really double down on the stuff that is important, you just go sideways. And that's where people contact me and they go, oh my God, I'm so busy, I'm frantic, I'm on this hamster wheel, we've done really well, I was a great recruiter, what do I do now? And they're like, you almost kind of want to go, oh.
It's like, just come in here, sign up, we're going to figure this all out, right? It's all doable.
And there's a way through. But when you don't know what you don't know, it's overwhelming, and it's
absolutely
frustrating.
Well, how did you get through it? You've had 2 exits in a recruiting agency. People are going to want to read your headline and learn about that. How did you figure that out as an owner?
Yeah, I mean, I'm continually figuring it out, Clark.
How did you start to figure some stuff out? I don't say you have it all figured out, but
well, I guess there's a few things. So one, like recruiters are usually very high energy. I think most of us probably have ADHD. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, so actually I'm self-diagnosed with ADHD. I haven't been to a doctor. All the tests I do, they go, yeah, you're right in the red zone. So I think the first thing is absolutely, you have to know, you have to have a goal, you have to have something that you're going for to be able to step back and map out how you get there. So many people I speak to, they go, oh, you just kind of started and I'm going. And that's the mistake I made. I just started my business and kind of went, all right, well, if I don't have to go and get a job, that's good. we've made it. So that was the old me. The new me would go, okay, you have a goal. What do you want to achieve this year? What, in terms of your revenue, what do you want to be doing? What does your job look like? Do you want to be hiring people? What do you want your marketing to look like? What do you want your clients to look like? Where do you want to be working from? How many hours do you want to be working? What is it? So it's not always all about the money. It might be about working less hours. I'm a mom. I want to do 4 days a week, not 5, but I want to make the same amount of money. Then you can start to strategize how you do that. So the second thing is that we need focus. And once you start to think, okay, that's what I want, well, bring it back to the now. Because the first thing when we set a goal, it's like out in the future somewhere, the first thing that gets in the way, like you come back to the future and then you go, okay, well, I'll do this, this, and this. And then you kind of hit a stumbling block, but you've got to work out how to get through those. And I think the way to get through those is to break that year down into much smaller goals. We in the program, we do 3-month milestones and 6-week sprints. So we just have something to focus on short term that we know is pulling us to that long-term goal. So that's the first thing. So that gives you the focus. The second thing is consistency. We get bored in recruitment. So, and I see this all the time. I heard a stat the other day that out of all the podcasts that have started, the average amount of time they go for is 6 episodes. so people go, right, podcast is a good example. Right?
I'm going to do this thing. No, it's a great example. I'm going to do this. Everyone's going to know about us. Yeah.
I'm going to start a podcast. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to interview these really cool people. Then they get a few episodes and they go, God, I've got to find another guest. I've got to edit it. I've got to And what happens is they front load all this activity and they get it up and running, and then they get bored with it just about when it's about to start working for them. And I'm not just saying podcasts. This is anything. It could be a webinar series. It could be a white paper. It could be your newsletter, whatever it is that you're doing. And then they'll go and they'll jump to something else. And then what would have happened, now they jumped to something else. Now they're back setting it up again and starting all over again to try something different, because the podcast didn't work because I've done 6 episodes and I didn't double my business. It doesn't work like that. You got to keep going. And then once you get your podcast to, or whatever it is, to how many episodes, then you start to think, well, what parts of this that I'm doing can I delegate out to somebody else? How can I change it? How can I get better at it? How can I make it go faster? How do I sort of build a system into this? So all that I need to do is go out and find the guest and chat to them. Or you might even have somebody go and find the guest for you. So all you need to do in this whole process in the end is show up. And then you might have your digital funnel and process from there all set up and done by somebody else. But because you got bored with it here, you miss out on all that opportunity to. So that's the second thing, is the consistency and keeping things going, and the patience to actually. Those days when you're bored are usually the days that are leading to something bigger. And I think getting bored with something, because we're entrepreneurial, we like change, that can be a big downfall, because we're kind of going, what's sexy about today? Oh, nothing. It's the same old. But sometimes that same old gets you there. The other big thing I think that is really tricky for people is delegation. People want to kind of hold things close, but the people who delegate, and they always accelerate faster, always. And even if when you delegate something, no, it's not going to be done as exactly how you do it. But if you want to do everything, you have to understand that your growth is capped. You cannot grow and do everything yourself. You have to start to look at what's outside my skill set and what's below my pay grade, and start getting rid of that stuff. So there's some things I see often that get in the way of growth. And then people, as we touched on before, thinking that they can sort of get to here by just doing more of what got them to here. And a good example of that is someone like, okay, well, we need more candidates. I'm just going to get on the phone and call more candidates. That's a sort of recruitment mind. That's a sort of a desk level thinking. But a CEO would be thinking, what system can I create? What marketing process do I need to create to be able to drive more candidates to us as a company? And so we need to create this different thinking about working on the business as opposed to working in it just to generate monthly revenue, month in, month out. We're thinking about the longer term and what that looks like. So that's another, and that's a jump. There's a guy called you heard of a guy called Dan Sullivan?
Yes.
Yeah, he's amazing. He coaches billionaires, and have you heard the thing about 2x versus 10x thinking?
Yes. Yeah.
it's really
I'm
powerful.
not
So
saying I
if
can repeat off the top of my head, but like I know I can picture exactly. It's in my pea brain somewhere that I've heard the 2x, 10x, Dan
it's
Sullivan. Yeah.
It's really good because what 2x thinking has you doing? So a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I'm doing 300,000. I want to do 600,000. So we want to double that business," and that's fine. That's a good goal to have. What he says is that 2x thinking has your brain start to think about what can I do more of? Like, okay, I'm calling 10 people a day. I'll call 20. Now
Hmm.
that's going to burn out pretty quickly. Whereas 10x thinking has you think if you wanted to 10x from if you wanted to go from 200 to 2 million, you can't do that. So 10x thinking gets your brain thinking, hang on, I have to reinvent this. I have to think of a different way to get 10 times the amount of candidates in than just doing more. So we need to step into this 10x thinking, sit back, give ourselves some space to strategize and think, all right, where are the big bottlenecks in my business? How can I think about this as if I was going to 10x my revenue? Your goal might still just be to double, but the 10x thinking will it'll give you more sophisticated solutions to the issues in your business. So that's
Yeah.
something that really helped me as well. They're probably the main. I could go on all day, but they're
Yeah.
probably some of the main ones, Clark.
So many good ones, and I'm already thinking of like leveraging. When that people that set up LinkedIn automation for the first time, and they're used to sending maybe a couple messages a day, or they ignore any other outreach for a week because I got to work on the roles that I have, and I'm like, okay. And then they start using it like this is automatic and it's happening every day because we've built the right approach and right strategy, right? Understanding who they are, what they're about, their competitive advantage, what clients and or candidates that they want more of. And then they have this thing running like, wait, this can just be running? What's the typical complaint that I hear? I'm getting too many responses is a lot of the complaint that I hear. I'm like, this was a problem you didn't know could exist a week ago. And like, think about what you're saying to me right now, right? So there's always different and hopefully growing to better problems, but like, that's just because we've 10x'd their desk. And when I tell people I'm not trying to brag, but to give the context, like, business
Yeah,
grew a little bit last year. I spent maybe an hour prospecting a month because I have it on autopilot because I don't
yeah,
worry about top of funnel anymore. I don't worry
yeah,
about the outreach or the content because it works.
yeah,
Because that's the tendency. Like I did the training on it to know what I need to do, and then
yeah,
the execution, right? The right coaching, make sure I stay consistent with it. It can solve so many other problems and cover up so many other holes in my business. Like allows me to 10x. I had more time to record and get to episode 55, 58, whatever interview this is.
you're well
Then I
past
get
six.
well past six because I don't have to worry about that anymore, right? How many
Yeah,
people are worried about their top of funnel? It's like, well, I'm not. I don't even track the numbers of the downloads for the. I haven't looked at that in a month on the download because my goal is not the numbers. The goal is to get it out there. The numbers come.
yeah,
I don't need to do 20,000 downloads a month, even 100 to 200 per episode. That's a few hundred per month, but it's in my targeted ICP. That's all I care about. That's
yeah,
like 400 to 500 downloads. I mean, could I even bring on 500 clients in a year? And now I have to reverse. I have to think about that. Okay, well, I probably can't serve individually 500 people, but could they all have like, could they have a course or a playbook, whatever that looks like?
yeah,
Like create the opportunities to make you drive some of the offers and the products that you could drive. Like that mindset, I think is some of that 10x stuff. Like you build that system, the market's going to give you the answers, and if the market, no one's paying attention to you, well, you got to figure some stuff out, right? But if they are, like that's a good problem. Like you could figure out what to do with the attention and what the
yeah,
attention means. But to your point, that 2x, like, oh, I'll just get Zoom info or I'll just get Seamless. I'm like, why?
yeah.
Like, no one
Think
knows
it
who
through.
you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
think it through. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. And what happens is when you solve one challenge in business, so if you're not getting enough leads or conversations, and then all of a sudden you've got them, then you do have another challenge in your business, which is the delivery component. And so there's your next bottleneck that you need to look at. So,
Yeah.
okay, how do we increase our capacity? Do we need to bring on VAs? Is there now some tech that we need to use to automate some things? Do I need to hire another recruiter? If you have one busy month, you obviously don't do that. But if it's consistent and your business is heading in the right direction, there's always something. There's always solving one challenge. Always leads to the next bottleneck. Always,
Yeah.
without fail. because everything's related. There's an interplay in business between everything that we do. Our marketing generates more leads generate more pressure on delivery pressure puts more pressure on systems. So it's all interrelated. We just literally go from one to the other and grow it all where these bottlenecks come, and that's what leads to you
The rocket ship.
ultimately heading in
Yeah.
heading in the right direction. But when people just get overwhelmed and they're spinning around and they're on this and they're on this kind of hamster wheel of sorry, not hamster wheel, this roller coaster,
Yeah.
wrong analogy, the roller coaster of going up one month, getting really busy and down. That's because of all the human interaction. If once you bring in systems and automation around that, and not just automation but process as well,
Yeah.
and like you were saying, you consistency, you do the marketing on a consistent basis, that will start to then, it starts to become more like this and level out. But I see it all the time. I get really busy, and it's happening now in January because everyone had such a rubbish in February. Sorry, well, January was happening. Everyone's had such a rubbish year last year. Then all of a sudden the market took off in January. Now no one's got time to do anything except deliver. I
Right.
had one guy in our program. There's only a couple of people in the business, and they had 13 starters in January, and he's like, I just don't know what to do, because now his new problem is delivery, and how does he manage the volume
Yeah.
that he's got. So he'll go over there, he'll focus on delivery, and then down the track some point, pardon me, if he doesn't manage it, he'll end up back in the same spot again where, I've got no jobs, they've all filled.
Yeah.
um, Everybody has that issue until they work out the whole
It's
systems
rocket ship.
process, getting
Yeah.
that bedded in. Yeah,
How did
interesting.
you? It is, and from that, because like the way you talk about content, the patience is so key. People gotta have patience in all this stuff. I mean, you overestimate what you can do in a day, underestimate what you can do in a year.
Yeah.
To study the great businesses, the people that made it, right? You do kind of want to study some of the survivorship and also people that didn't make it, and it's just sticking with it and not bouncing around and really taking ownership of what you do well and your value, and that confidence surrounding yourself with the right people and the people that help you kind of get out of your own head quickly and just kind of keep moving forward. I think is so important. But
It's interesting.
yeah,
I've been listening to. I'm always listening to some coach or something or some
yeah,
podcast. I'm in groups myself. I'm an avid learner, and I was listening to somebody say the other day how quite often if you're in that really frantic state, it can be an addiction. And so people, they'll come and they'll say to me, "Oh, Belinda, I'm overwhelmed," and they've been like this for 5 years or whatever, and it's become a habit and almost a way of being. And so if you start to, you've got to be really clear what you want and how you want to feel in your business. Because if you're getting the adrenaline hits and all that from just being frantic and being everywhere, and you're driving on, running on adrenaline, and you're wearing your kidneys out, it's very hard to switch from that to being like, the Buddhist on the rock. I'm not saying it's that extreme, but
yeah.
be calming yourself down and taking step by step. It's a very foreign place to be. So you need to be ready emotionally as well to be able to move your business on in the direction you want. It's interesting. I see it quite a lot because there is a lot of, hits in recruitment, and if you sort of liken it to sales, when you get the closing, it's like, there's a hit, and now I'm busy, I'm frantic, this is happening, that's happening, I'm really busy, so I must be making money. It's this kind of association that busy means money when it doesn't. Busy just means busy, and if you're making money, you can be busy or you can be not busy. The two aren't related. It's the doing the right activity that's related. So I think sometimes we have to think about our own brains, and are we kidding ourselves that we really don't want to be frazzled, or are we just so in the habit and getting the payoff of it. It could be sympathy from other people. God, you work so hard, or you got to be really clear that your mental state and the way you are is something that you want to shift and be successful in a measured and even and calm way. Does it make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
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 and I
yeah,
mean, you
yeah.
got me thinking about my own. And it's like sometimes, I think it's good. I think you mentioned also like the being bored. I don't mind having like I treasure the still moments, and it's easy for people to take your time and book a call here and book a call there, and working really hard on having some of those boundaries and not people wasting my time because it's easy for people to do. To be perfectly honest, and you have to watch out for that. If you have any sort of success, especially in marketing and all that, people want to know what you know without paying for it.
Yeah.
And
It's so interesting.
yeah,
one of the programs that I'm in has like really successful entrepreneurs in it, and most of them are bored because they've built these amazing systems around themselves, and they've just taken it step by step and built and built and built and built and built. And then they've done it all so well. They've got these amazing systems running that they're just like twiddling their thumbs going, well, what next? I've, taken my Porsche for a spin today. I've taken the yacht out. Like,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Really interesting.
So what do they? I mean, what do they do? What do they end up doing?
Lots of them will start
Yeah.
to do philanthropic things.
Okay, that's okay. So I think
Or
I
they'll
mean I think
or they'll start another business.
yeah, and I think that's like I know I asked that because I think it's important. Like it never ends. I think we talked about it before we started recording. Like there's always something, right? You could sell and you could exit. You're always going to want to do something. And I've had a few owners like yourself on here that have exited, and you're coaching now and doing something, right? It's just like that drive isn't going to go away. I think it's just putting it in a healthy bucket of like, okay, is it getting me to where I want to go to? Building the
I
systems
know.
and all that
It's
good stuff. It's
so,
just like making time for it. Yeah.
yeah, so true. I mean, I thought about it. I was like, what will I do now? Because I didn't really have to start. And I was like, no, I love this. And I think if you're doing what you love,
Yeah.
like that's everything, isn't it? And the part about what I love is I'm always learning, and I love learning. I think when you coach and you teach and you are involved in other people's businesses, you're always learning as
Yeah.
well. So that's lovely. And then I love the actual process of working with people and then seeing them take the ideas and implement them and then get the results in their business. Like there's something magical in that for me. The admin and all that kind of stuff, I can leave well
Yeah.
alone. The finance bores the hell out of me. Like if I have to look at a spreadsheet, it's like may as well poke
You
sticks
and
in
me
my
both.
eyes.
Yeah.
But we're all good at something, and I mean, that's the other thing in business too, is that quite often, again, founders, they've got to do all this stuff. And there's usually only about three things we're really good at in a business. And the rest of it, we're kind of muddling our way through. And so that's really stressful for people. And, we've talked about it already, but the more that they can delegate or systemize these things that they're not good at and get them off their plate and focus on what they're good at, they'll be happier and then also get to where they want to get to faster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in the process with some of those things right now myself on something kind of delegating or reorganizing how we're doing that. So I'm completely with you. I got to ask, like, how did an exit come about? Right, you've had not one, not two, but like, I'm sure listeners wonder, like, how does those conversations happen? Like, when did you know? Like, what does it look like? Like, what do you have to have in
For
order to even get an exit? Yeah,
Yeah, well, for me, it was probably pretty boring, actually, to be honest. So
yeah,
the first business I was approached, I wasn't looking to sell. I was approached by an international business who were looking to start in Australia, and they just went around the market and kind of went, well, who's good in this market? And they approached me. So that was pretty easy. I am not the person to talk to about how to actually go about the process of selling a business. I've done it once. There's plenty of M&A experts out there that will,
yeah.
have done it time and time again and know what to look for. So I was a bit of a novice, but I think the important lesson about that is if you build a business with the right foundations and the right structure in it, when the time is right, whether you go out to market and sell or whether you're lucky like I was and somebody approaches you, then you're in the best position to get the best price for it. So what I mean by that is that the business isn't all about you. If you're a solo business, it's very hard to sell. I know it does happen from time to time, but there's not a good there's not a good multiple there for you. But the more that you can build a system and create predictable profit, a lot of people will say that's off a temp business. I actually didn't have it. I had a very small temp business. The reason that my business sold was because these people wanted to get into the Australian market. Oh, I just had an internet message. Can you still hear me, Clark?
I can now. Yeah.
Yeah. Where did you hear till? And I'll start again.
Uh, it froze up to the systems and the solo people don't have a good multiplier, and then I kind of lost it right after that.
Okay. So solo people, it's very hard to get a good multiple for your business because your business is dependent on you. But as you start to get more people in, then you can obviously remove yourself and it becomes about the brand. A lot of people will say that you need to have a temp or contract desk to get a good sale, that wasn't me. The reason, the interest in me was because it was an international company wanting to get a foothold in Australia, and they didn't want to come and set up. They just wanted to buy an operation that was already going, that had the brand, that had the relationships. So that's where I was, I guess, lucky. I speak to people and no, you weren't lucky, Belinda. That's just how things went. But that's the way it went for me. So I think if you run a business, and actually one of the experts in the Scale project with me is a gentleman by the name of Rod Hoare. He's a mergers and acquisition expert. We had him on the other day, and he said, word for word, if you set up the business to be profitable and high performing, whether you sell it or not, it doesn't matter. You want it to be high performing because you want to get obviously the results from it, but that will make it more saleable anyway. So if you stop sort of worrying about what sort of business people will buy and setting the foundations, building the systems, getting the right advice, and creating a highly profitable business, then you've got a business that will sell.
Yeah, absolutely. So many
Yeah.
people are worried about that piece, and I see it more and more. I'm like, well, how do you get your clients? All referrals. Well, I don't know. That sounds like a tricky way to, make repeatable, or like, is it all direct hire and there's no staffing? So it's all like, there's no predictable revenue if you don't have contractors and all that. Like, that increases your multiplier big time.
Yeah.
So
there's no doubt that contractors and Tampa are amazing because they also, people buy businesses because of the promise of future profit.
Yeah.
So the reason that contractors and like all those sorts of contracts that are in place are good is because that's money already. But that's not the only reason that people buy businesses. Another interesting fact I heard Rod say as well was, and this was new to me, is that if you're a smaller business, then it's very unlikely that a really large business will buy you because the amount of internal the amount it costs them internally to do a purchase would be more than the actual value of the business, which I found really interesting. I'm sure it happens, but that was an interest. So it's normally mid-size, like smaller to mid-size businesses that will buy smaller businesses, and then the bigger businesses buy it's like the food chain. Which I didn't know. So I don't want to pretend to be an expert on selling businesses. I think it's important for people to know, because what it showed is that I did know how to set up a business in such a way that it was very profitable, but also it did become a saleable asset. And then the second one too. Yeah.
Well, that's super cool. No, I think that is the lesson and all that. You don't have to. I don't need you to break down M&A. My head would probably spin if you tried to, or if we got into that conversation. But I think just founding like the foundations and kind of knowing who you are, the problems you want to solve as a business. I think that's the lessons. Just to take it step by step is really important, and have that patience. And you're not going to solve all your problems at once. And kind of figuring out the priority, the order of operations of what you should tackle, I think is super
and
important.
Speak to people who've been there and done it before, because what you think, where you think you're going, what you think you need is often, it's probably on the right track, but often it can be different to what you really need. And someone who's been there before you will go, oh, I thought that too, but think about this and maybe think about doing it this way. People, I don't like to tell people what they should do. Like, I had somebody ring me yesterday and ask for some advice, and we were saying about, how it's really annoying when people tell you what you should do, but you want people around you that can give you advice and bring your attention to things that you might not have thought about to help you make the right decisions for you and your business and your future. Because we all have businesses because we want to create a lovely life for ourselves and our family. It's not about the clients. It's not about the candidates. If we start with what we want in our future, then the clients and the candidates get a good experience in that whole story.
Yeah. Well said. Well, I have two last questions I want to ask. First,
sure.
I'm pivoting a little bit. How did you learn to kind of write and content? Because I think the way you think about content, the way you write content and post is very aligned kind of with a lot of what I teach, recommend, kind of I do myself. Like, how did you learn the content marketing piece?
Yeah, thank you. Sure. I think a bit of it was just sort of self-taught and learning, but I did do, there's like a few little things I've done along the way. I'm trying to think of the guy, Justin Welsh. He's got a really good online
course. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that good. And I just follow different people, and I look at the way that other people do content that I see do really well, and I look for their formula and I follow that. I've listened to lots of I'm just interested, and I just make it my business to learn more about it as well. I was trying to think. That's not really giving your listeners a very good.
Well, it is because I think you're aware and you're in tune, right? I think the Justin Watson, I did some masterminds and learned content. I bought his course, and I think it helped me kind of show where I can kind of simplify some of my copy because I think he did a good job of like 3 to 4 line posts and stuff like that. That could be kind of to a wider audience, and you can kind of niche it down to yours. But it made me rethink kind of the longer form content, which can be very effective, but like different ways. It's almost like changing the eye level of your readers sometimes, so you're not always looking too predictable.
And
But
and I
studying it is also helpful too. Yeah.
and I think too the mistake I used to make as well, Clark, was that I used to think there was kind of a way to do content. But the reality is, there's a million. It's just like you can sit down and write a letter. There's lots of different ways that you could write that letter. It could be short, it could be long, you could put pictures in it. And I think the content that you put out needs to fit with who you are. So if you just want to do short written content and that works for you, or you want to do video and that works for you, or you want to talk about a certain stream in the market, then do that, because if you enjoy it, then you'll do it more. If you try and force yourself into doing content the way somebody else does it, I don't think that's going to serve you. So I think
Yeah.
there's a few principles to follow, like we spoke about before. But whether you do video or whether you do written stuff, or sometimes you might want to talk about personal stuff or not, or you might not want to talk about personal stuff at all. You just got to find your rhythm and stick to it.
Stick to what that's it, right? Stick to it. And I know we try to give people ideas and templates and examples and all that, but our whole actual course is like, this is the goal of it. It's got to come from you. It's got to be your stories. Like, work on that. That can just be the hardest part
Yeah.
to do. But if you're having these conversations every day with candidates and clients, like, you just got to take a step back and breathe, or when you're bored or have a minute, right? And just like to record it, write it down, voice memo, like whatever you got to do, and just start getting in the habit. And you don't have to post 5 times a week. One good post a week is better than 5 things that you just kind of throw up and copy and paste.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think too, it used to be, very much about having one channel, but now people buy differently. We need to be omnipresent these days, but that can be a very sort of complex place to start. And I think if you're early on in your journey with content, just start with one thing. It's probably going to be LinkedIn in a B2B environment. Start there, nail that in, and then start to take it out to YouTube and Instagram and other places, or wherever your market is. Because once you've got that good formula going and your content's working for you, it's not hard to actually repurpose it out to those other areas. And you shouldn't be doing that yourself. You should be getting somebody else to do that for you. But
Yeah.
you can repurpose things. And I think they used to sort of say, look, just have one channel, make that thing you do. But everyone's everywhere now, and the way buyers buy now is they sort of expect to see you in different places, and then when they're ready and they've seen enough of you, they'll jump in and engage. So there's
Yeah.
a bit of a and you'll know that yourself if you look at your own buying habits now. You'll start to see people in different places, and if you're looking for a particular thing, the people that you see more and you like what they're saying, and you see them on different channels, you go, oh, okay, they must be, your brain's going to go, that must be pretty good. I'm seeing them everywhere. I'll buy from them.
Yeah.
But I think if you try and go, I'm going to do everything all at once, it just gets really messy and it'll suck up all your time, and you'll get so frustrated with it and you just give up.
I think that's the right way to pick a channel, own it, and then kind of move out, slowly from there. I think it's
Yeah.
great advice. All right, last question. What is, beginning of 2025, what's like one piece of advice you have for, well, you work with founders, that you have for founders, right, in 2025 as a recruitment owner?
Focus.
Yeah. Word of the year. I like it. It's a contender. Word of the year. That's my word of the year. It's focus. My wife's helping me with it. It's great. I also have undiagnosed ADD, which I think is a significant trait of people that actually probably have ADD. It's so I'm with you. So it's like focus, right? Just that
Yeah.
focus. I think that's it.
I don't know if you've heard that story with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and they were somewhere, and one of their dads, I think so, it was a long time ago, said to them, what's the most important thing for success in business? And they got them to write it down on a piece of paper and put it behind their back, and then they didn't see it each other's, and then they both showed the piece of paper, and they both had written focus. So if it's good enough for them,
it could work for us. I
yeah,
love it.
exactly.
I love it. Well, super enlightening, really cool, like just really cool background experiences. I'm like finding myself nodding my head either visibly or not visibly and everything you're saying. So I'm like, yep, that's a lot of what I teach and coach as well. So it's cool that
Great.
these principles are worldwide and are international. They kind of hold true, and I appreciate you just sharing your experience from successful owner to coach, and it's no surprise that you've had the success that you've had because you definitely get it. So, and I just appreciate the conversation and you joining me.
Yeah, likewise, and right back at you, Clark. I know that you're doing some amazing stuff and getting great results with your cohort as well. So it's lovely to be connected. All those, I don't know how many thousand miles
Yeah,
away.
it's I'm not a mathematician. I have no idea off the top of my head, but
A
I
14-hour
agree
plane ride. I don't.
from wherever I am here, but it's great. Well, recruitmentgarage.com. That's where to find you. No, sorry, the Tech Savvy Recruiter podcast. Make sure to subscribe. We're gonna have the links to all this. Make sure to
Okay,
connect with Belinda. We'll have the links
sure.
and all that in the episode page. Give it 5 stars because I know she was a 5-star guest. So appreciate you
Thank you
doing
very
that.
much.
And until next time, appreciate you, Belinda. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so nice to be here. Thank you so much
You're
for having me on.
quite welcome. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.